Gupta, Chairman CICAI, our speakers for today evening, past chairman of our chapter, distinguished guests, executive committee members, and fellow chartered accountants, a very good evening to all of you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am CA Arun Kotwani, the host for today evening, and also member of the executive committee of BCICAI. So kicking off on this inaugural event for this term, I will now call upon Chairman CA Sanjay Gupta to address the gathering. I urge you all, please welcome him with a thunder.
Thank you very much, CA Arun. Honorable past chairman of our chapter, dear members, distinguished guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to you all. Good evening. Few days back, the breaking news caption in Indian news channel, they changed their style. Instead of politics and crime, it was economics. Free fall of Indian rupee. Rupee is falling. Economy in distress. Seeing all this, one of my friends, he was a little confused. He asked me, Sanjay, why there is so much of panic? Rupee falling. Isn't it true that its value has increased from 50 to 68? I think the joke has fallen flat. Friends, on a serious note, we all know rupee has seen serious jolts in recent past, and it is still seen as one of the most vulnerable currency against all the major currencies in the world. The natural questions that arise: what are the reasons of these jolts? Rupee depreciation, is it homegrown or imported? Is it as an NRI? Is it an opportunity or a threat? And this brings us to this seminar. We are honored to have among us two of the best, learned, qualified, experienced speakers on the subject. Mr. Mohan Ganeshan, the Chief Executive Officer of State Bank of India, Mr. Ashok Gautam from Axis Bank. I request you all to please welcome them. Recently, I was reading one book of APJ Abdul Kalam, Guiding Souls. One quote of APJ Abdul Kalam caught my attention. We all must do introspection. Make the most of yourself by fanning the small sparks of possibility into the flames of achievement. These possibilities your ExCom will be providing during the year. Some of the events which have been lined up, demand of the members to conduct this course. Seeing the success of the first batch of IFRS program, we are going to conduct the second batch of IFRS program as well. It is going to take place sometime from February onwards. In addition, as CA Muralidhar told in his address, the C2A Gavels Club, it is the follow-up of the youth leadership program which our chapter had been conducting for the benefit of the children of our members. There was a great demand to follow this initiative with the regular Toastmasters Club for the children. The C2A Gavels Toastmasters is that initiative which is being taken forward. And now the regular meetings, weekly meetings are being held for this club every Friday. We are planning on the lines of the success of BCEI Fiesta last year, the Sports Day and Family Day. It is going to take place, inshallah, in the winter vacation of December. The precise dates are still being planned depending on the availability of the venue. The overseas tour is also under plan. You will receive the email shortly from our ExCom. There has been a significant development few months back. Some of the members of our chapter, they participated in a competition which was going to appear in the Guinness Book of World Record. It was the world's largest memory game. And friends, this has gained place in the Guinness Book of World Records. This information I got. For taking this initiative, we have to thank CA Dilip Jain for providing this opportunity to the members. Friends, I was really overwhelmed with the emotional involvement of all of you during the proceedings of annual general meeting. Assuming this, we sent an email to all of you a few days back seeking your suggestions on the speakers you would like to listen, the programs you would like us to conduct for you. I need your suggestions, I need your valuable comments on that email. It will help us in arranging the programs which provide better value addition to our members, and it may, inshallah, address our membership thing as well. At this stage, friends, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanks to our mentors, the past chairman of our chapter, who have always stood by us in every respect, whether it is sponsorship, whether it is logistic support. I personally feel overwhelmed whenever I call them. They are there to listen to me, they are there to help us. A big round of applause to all of them. My dear friends, as I told you, life reflects back on us what we give to it. You all are the big strength of our chapter. Your positive energy and support I expect to multiply in the near future, many-fold. So let's engage and enrich and empower ourselves with the enriching experience. Keep smiling. God bless you.
Sanjay Gupta, Chairman, for the opening remarks. We will now proceed with our technical session. In order to maintain the continuity of the session, the question and answers portion will be held at the end of the session. Members are requested to hand over the questionnaire to the volunteers. We will try to accommodate as many questions as we can, depending upon the availability of time. As our Chairman C.A. Sanjay Gupta mentioned, the rupee did face various short and still seen as vulnerable to major currencies in the world. Friends, while the matter of depreciating rupee was a matter did spell financial hardships on resident Indians, on the other hand, the NRIs were on a double knife edge. At one hand, we were happy that depreciating rupee probably meant more value of money back home, but at the same time, it implied the investment back home in India had eroded by 20% in dollar terms. Considering the way the rupee had lost its shine, and the Indian economy still being import intensive, and with other concerns like the general elections, the low economic growth rate, the NRIs look forward to gauge, will the rupee be caught itself in this vicious trap once again, and whether investments in India would be beneficial or detrimental. To answer these questions, we are fortunate to have amongst us Mr. Mohan Ganesan, CEO of the State Bank of India. He is a veteran in the banking industry and has been associated with SBI Group since 1985 in various capacities covering rural banking, credit, forex, retail asset processing cell, etc. Prior to joining as CEO of Retail Branch Bahrain, Mr. Mohan was regional manager of 55 branches back in India. His qualifications include BSA, BA Political Science and CIF, and is regarded as one of the best who drives the best practice in his field. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mohan Ganesan.
Vice Chairman Mr. Meenakshi Sundaram, Chartered Accountants of the Bahrain Chapter of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I was asked by Mr. Sanjay Gupta to talk on the rupee depreciation, the Indian economy, the falling rupee, the threats and opportunities available to NRIs, and any other related issue. At the outset, I would like to thank the Bahrain chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for having invited me to this seminar to talk on the subject. The Chartered Accountants of India and State Bank of India, they go a long way. They have been our partners in progress and growth. They have been our partners in offering us advice on various issues. There is a bond, there is a relationship between the Chartered Accountants of India and State Bank of India dating back to a number of years. They are our advisors for corporate taxation. They are our advisors for service tax issues. They are our advisors for FEMA related issues. They are our advisors for NRIs also. and they are also our auditors for 15,000 branches that we have in India. So this relationship I personally cherish because I have gained in immense measure during my interactions with the chartered accountants whenever they come to my branch for either audit or for any other issue. I have always found that even in whenever we have a issue of IRAC classification or the income recognition or of the fixed asset depreciation, I find the views of the chartered accountant who has come to audit my branch has been paramount and has been, of so much value that it has always been a learning curve for me. Now here in Bahrain, I understand that the Bahrain chapter of Chartered Accountants of India has more than 200 members. So this is a big group. This is a big group of the very highly qualified professionals who are working in various sectors in Bahrain, in the Kingdom of Bahrain. They are there in banks. They are there in corporate. They are corporate honchos. They are there as regulators. They are there as in accounting firms, and they are there as businessmen also. So this is a very, it's a group which carries a lot of weight. I should say they are opinion makers in the Kingdom of Bahrain. So I shall not lose this opportunity to send to this very valuable audience State Bank of India. So I will ask you to excuse me for taking some time for that. Actually, it's not even my State Bank of India, it's actually your bank. State Bank of India is a government-held bank, it's a national heritage. So the cooperation and the connection that we have back home in India, I would welcome that the Bahrain chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India also helps State Bank of India grow its footprint here in the Kingdom of Bahrain. With that, I will move forward to the topic. We shall start with first the person who is there in the midst of all, the Masiha for the Indian economy now, the new governor of the Reserve Bank of India, Dr. Raghuram Rajan. We shall start with three of his statements. He says, and I quote, India is a fundamentally sound economy with a bright future. Our task today is to build a bridge to the future over the stormy waves produced by global financial markets. His second statement, India's slowing economy and its massive current account and fiscal deficits are not structural problems, and they can be fixed with modest reforms. And the third statement is, a few years ago, India could do no wrong, today India can do no right. The first two statements you mark, you find it very positive. The last statement probably is a reaction to the questions raised by various financial analysts, and he also compared this financial analyst to cricket fans. I think he remarked that just like the cricket fans, the financial analysts also will tend to, in good times they tend to raise the cricketers up to pedestal, and in bad times they bring them back to rock bottom. So these are the three statements, but the first two statements especially, you will find that they are very positive. There is a glimmer of hope, and already the change that he has brought about, not just by his policy statements, by his very demeanor, and people are expecting that, because a new man has come in, market sentiment has changed. All of you must have marked that. Now, let us go to the Indian economy. What are the strengths? What are the strengths of the Indian economy? The huge country that India is, what are the strengths? We have a very young productive population. 70% of our population is in the productive age now. So this number is unparalleled. Nowhere in the world does such a young population, such a large percentage of young population exist. Europe, Japan, or USA, they have a problem of an aging population. We don't have that. So that is one of our very big strengths. Then our self-sufficiency in food grains. We are going from strength to strength. Despite so many setbacks, our food grain production at say 240 or 245 million tons is so much for us that we have adequate self-sufficiency, plus we have enough to export also. We have a very large manufacturing base across the board, right from very small industries, very small units to medium enterprises to very large industries. Across the board we have industries producing, manufacturing all type of products. As a country, India is blessed with a lot of natural resources. We are blessed with most of the minerals are there with us. Most of the minerals are there. We don't have probably petroleum products. We don't have. Apart from that, we are having a majority of the minerals required for the industry. We have immense tourism potential. The country is so varied and so rich in its flora, fauna, and the structures there, that it can become a big source of earners for the country. Then we have a very large pool of skilled, educated people. Now, where are the weaknesses? When we look at the weaknesses, we find that there is so much of disparity in income. Have and have nots. The per capita GDP is also very low compared to the rest of the world. Now, when you look at the BPL, there have been various definitions for BPL, and the last government report said that 22% of our population is below the poverty line. There has been a lot of controversy about the figure, about the fixation of the poverty level by the government, and there have been arguments for and against this view. Recently, the government of India has come out with the food security bill, and there they said that we are going to cover 67% of the population under the food security bill. So friends, is it not a tacit admission of fact that 67% of our population is actually below the poverty line? So I tend to go along with the second view, because the disparities are very, very huge in India. Then the infrastructure. The less said about the infrastructure in India is, the more it is. Like if you go to other parts of the world, when you see, Middle East, when you see Europe, or when you see even Africa, the facilities available in India are very, very, very poor. Then the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, red tapeism, license are all three come under the same head. Ratan Tata once remarked that for one of his ventures, he had to get 167 approvals. So that's how bad it is that bureaucracy, red tapeism. So that is a big dampener for any investor. Then we have a very unstable polity for the last now almost 10 years or so. We have this coalition, we have a federal structure, we have a coalition government, a government which depends on partners who extract their own pound of flesh, who from time to time create problems for the government, who make demands and are able to get away with those demands even if they are against the interest of the country. So this unstable polity is creating to be a big drain for India. Then we have the common Indian. He has a lust for greed, lust for gold and other imported stuff. It will be surprising to know that almost a quarter of the gold produced in the world is consumed by India. Of course, a lot of it goes back as exported back as gems and jewelry, but still it goes to show that how much gold India is consuming, and that contributes about 50, 60, 65 billion to the current account deficit. Then, most importantly, our dependence on oil imports. This is a big issue with India, that of your total import bill, almost I think about 25% is the import bill. Of the import bill is your oil imports. So that is another big weakness of the economy. Now we go to the next slide, where I tried to show the INR USD movement in the last 7 months, last 8 or 9 months. Yeah. you will observe that from January to May, June, the rupee has been fairly stable, fairly within a range, it has been range bound and within the range of say 56 to 58, it has been moving, except for one spike where it appreciated during January 2012. Otherwise, it was range bound in this 56 to 58 range. Now, suddenly what happened in May and June? Suddenly you find in May and June there is a spike, and then a further spike, and then a further spike. The rupee entered into a endless tunnel of going down. Nobody seemed to know where the end is. During those days, I was inundated with calls from all people here in Bahrain, asking me, should we remit money now or should we wait for tomorrow? I had no answer to that. Because if I say yes, I find the next day the rupee has depreciated by another 2 or 3 rupees to the dinar. This kept on happening. What was the trigger for that? I think the principal trigger for that was the statement by Mr. Bernanke, who is the chairman of the US Fed Reserve, when he said that the quantitative easing which the US Fed had been doing should be tapered off. That means he will stop or he will gradually reduce the quantitative easing. Now that statement, coupled with other things like India's growth story being below par, the economy improving by leaps and bounds in the US, the mess that was there in the Eurozone, meant that the investors, especially the foreign the FIIs who had invested heavily, they were not only, they had come here with the view that their capital will appreciate, but suddenly they find themselves in a situation where their capital itself is in danger. So there was a outflow of funds during that time. And it's purely the rupee value and the dollar, it's purely a question of demand and supply. So when the dollars are being sucked out of the system and rupees there in circulation, more rupees, less dollars. So the dollar was appreciating all the time. This kept on happening till almost 8th of September, till 20. Today is 21st. So this went on up to say 14th or 13th of September. Then there was a there was an appreciation of the rupee. The rupee suddenly started appreciating after long spiral, downward spiral. What were the factors? Again, 2 or 3 statements. One statement made by the same Mr. Bernanke that no, the US will still think on tapering off. They will continue with their buyback of bonds to the tune of 85 billion per month. And then the other threat also of US attacking Syria, that also receded. That has helped the rupee gain back some respectability. So we shall go to the next slide. What are the factors which are responsible for the depreciation of the rupee? Which factors affect the rupee actually? Apart from the demand and supply, what creates demand, what takes away, what gives the supply? So the first major issue is your current account deficit. Now what is the current account deficit? Current account deficit is just an addition of your balance of trade, your net FI inflows, your net interest, net of interest payment and receipts, and your net inflows of NRI remittances. That's where you and I come and we contribute to the economy of the country. This is the current account deficit in short. Then the other factors are, as I told you, the policy announcement by the Fed Reserve and also the Reserve Bank of India. Then there was an announcement about the food security bill. This again created a scare in the eyes of the investor, and it led to a lot of loss of confidence. Food security bill, 135,000 crores fiscal deficit, already 5.5%. So people thought that this is going to become a banana republic now, and that was one more factor. Then there was a rise in the dollar index. As I told you, the European markets were doing badly, so the dollar was gaining against all currencies. People found this the dollar to be the best, safest haven. They found USA to be the best market. So there was a reverse flow. When the quantitative easing was first started, there was a flow of capital from the US market to the developing and emerging markets. When talks of tapering came, the reverse started happening. So this also impacted the depreciation of the rupee. Then oil and gold imports, oil about 180 billion dollars, gold about 60 billion dollars. So these are all big figures for a country which is grappling with the reduction in exports. If you can recollect, our exports in 2012-13 have actually reduced from what we had exported in 2011-12. It's almost at the same level, but reduced slightly. There has been no increase as such.